Mr. Keteyian, I appreciate Nick's 7 national championships, 5 at Alabama, perfectionist, attention to details. These are things I appreciate. My own college career, my career as a military veteran. But I have a hard time embracing Nick because of his departure or how he departed from the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
And you write about that in the book. You know, we know he had that press conference on, what was it, December 21st, 2006. He said, what do I have to say? I'm not going to be the next head coach at Alabama. And then a few weeks later, he was the head coach of Alabama.
I think he was in a situation where it was a state of flux for sure. And, you know, the recruiting of Nick by Alabama, by the athletic director at the time, was really the recruiting of Miss Terry Saban, Nick's wife, which if you're smart about it, that's the way to go. Mm-hmm. And I was down there. It's funny, when I was at CBS Sports, Nick's first year as a head coach for the Dolphins, I did a multi-part, I went down there multiple times to do which for CBS, the NFL Today, I think it was an 8-minute piece that ran during the playoffs, right, on that like Saturday before the Saturday game that CBS had. So when I originally went down there, Harvey Green was the PR person at the time and very experienced. And I said, you know, Harvey, I want to come down here 4 times, and I want to do like every 3 months, take Nick's temperature at the beginning of the season, you know, like sort of when they talk about it on a racetrack, you know, the quarter pole, the half pole, you're coming around the clubhouse turn, and then the end of the season. And that was the year. And Nick was like, I don't want to do that.
No,
I don't want to do that. And Harvey said to him, look, you want to do this, Nick, with Armen. And to his credit, Harvey stuck up for me, and Nick was like, all right. And then first time it wasn't great, you know, because he doesn't really give up much in the beginning. But then he saw how I worked, and I saw some things, and I asked him about it. And in the end, it was a terrific piece. They won their last, I think they ended up 9-7 that first year. And I knew Zach Thomas, and I knew Jason Taylor, so I had some ins there because I had covered the league, you know, from the sidelines for a long time, still was. And he was just, first of all, he didn't have a quarterback. You know, he wanted Drew Brees, and that didn't work out. It's a, you know, well-told story. He just wasn't well-suited for Miami. The facility was kind of really shitty, you know, and it was hot down there, and it was just not, and Terry didn't really like it. And I think when Alabama came around, have you ever been to Tuscaloosa?
No, sir.
Yeah, it's a great college town, T-town as it's known, and it was a perfect environment for Nick, and more importantly, it was perfect for Terry, because she could settle in down there. Because you know, Nick's, you know, his schedule is his schedule. You know, he's up at 6:15, he's out the door. Well, whenever he gets up, but he's out the door at starting to have his Debbie's cookies and his coffee, and then he's out the door, and he's very much a man of routine. Mm-hmm. So I think he got caught off guard. He said something. He said, I regret saying that. I made a mistake. He's owned up to it over time. And I just don't think he was suited for that. I mean, we saw it today with Urban Meyer, you know, getting fired by the Jaguars. You just don't treat grown men like you when you control a program when you're playing God at Ohio State.
Right.
You can't play God in an NFL locker room. That doesn't go very far. That goes nowhere.
Right.
And, you know.
And for that reason, like if I'm having a meeting of the best football coaches ever, of course, Belichick is there. Before I get to Nick Saban, I'm going to call for guys like Jimmy Johnson, who won a national championship at the University of Miami and then went on the biggest stage and won with the Dallas Cowboys. Pete Carroll, somebody that did it at both levels. And you wrote about this in the book. Some of the details, like Nick Saban's second year in Miami, he turns to his agent halfway through and said, man, I think I want to go to college.
Yeah.
And then when he is about to leave, he has the Alabama AD. He tells him to park down the block because I don't want the cameras to see that you're here.
Yeah.
And then pull into the driveway, throw the suitcases in there, and then he heads off to Tuscaloosa to adoring fans.
Yeah.
You were faced with adversity, and it seems like he ran. You know, Dan Le Batard was very critical, said he left a quitter. I'm not gonna call Nick Saban a coward. I don't know that man. The action seems somewhat cowardly to me, Armen.
I don't see him that way. I see him as, look, Alabama put a lot of money on the table. Nick was unhappy. I mean, you see these guys now. Shit, look at Brian Kelly. You know, I mean, that's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned, to say goodbye to your program. And, you know, thanks a lot, fellas. Now I'm down here, you know, in Baton Rouge speaking with a Southern accent. I mean, ridiculous. It's just, I think there's a point where there's just no shame anymore, that they'll say anything and do anything. And then, I mean, honest to God, I think sometimes, wow, so you're getting paid to fail. I mean, you're getting paid a lot of money, and you've got a window of 2 or 3 years. And if you don't win, which is really hard to do in a certain conference like the SEC, you take the money and you go and live a nice life. And look, I know I can't speak for Nick. What I can say is, I know it was a really hard decision, and it was a decision that, if it wasn't for Terry, who really wanted to leave, I think Nick would have stayed. But I think that he understood more than you know, almost anybody. If you don't have a quarterback in the NFL, you're not going to win, and you're just banging your head against the wall for far too long. I mean, it's a quarterback league, and you know, it's an offensive line league to protect your quarterback. And if you don't have that, and I think he was looking down the road at what he had at quarterback and what he could have had. And, you know, there's just, I mean, he doesn't do it halfway. So when you're all in every day, all day, it gets exhausting and you start to look for other things. So I can see how people, and look, I read all the newspaper clippings, and, you know, Dan, he was upset, and rightly so. I mean, there were a lot of people that felt like, you know, Nick backed out on him. And, I just saw it a little differently, but I can certainly understand why people feel that way.
All right. I can now embrace Nick Saban.
Okay.
You know, and all his greatness.
Well, I'm not his PR guy, but I do.
No, he really is great. And how do you explain that dominance? I mean, there's other coaches out there working too, trying to win games. For him to have this sustained, like, what's the key?
Well, the key is he's relentless. You know, first of all, as I said, I mean, I can't believe the amount of hours, but he's also incredibly efficient in how he operates. We've seen the kind of assistant coaches he hires, because half of them now are coaching in the SEC. Leaves no stone unturned, attention to detail, speaks to the recruits on a fatherly, personal, professional level. The facilities at Alabama are second to none. I guess you could argue, maybe I haven't seen like the latest Oregon facilities, but you know, you have a world-class stadium, you have a world-class workout facility, world-class meeting rooms, the best food. You're a star if you're playing at all on campus. It's a great place to be. He's used every advantage that he's created. And I remember in the 60 Minutes piece, I asked then the president of the university about Nick's contract. And I think at that time it might have been $5 million or so, just off the top of my head. And he said, without equivocation, it's the single best investment that the University of Alabama has ever made. And you look at, I can give you a point, certainly the buildings now. I mean, when Nick came there, out-of-state students, I think, were like 27% of the student population, maybe 30%. We're in Connecticut right now talking. There's a list of schools around here, New Canaan, Darien, Westport, Fairfield, Greenwich, that when the University of Alabama recruiter would come up here, there might be 10 people in the room with their parents. Mm-hmm. Now, when they have a University of Alabama gathering here in Fairfield County, there's 200 or 300 kids that want to go to Alabama. Sure. That's the Nick Saban effect. And I've seen it in the donations from the boosters, from the the image of the school, because the football program is like the front porch of a university. That's what it's considered to be. So if I'm making a choice as to where I want to go to school, and I'm up here in Connecticut, and I say, God, that Tuscaloosa looks pretty good. Alabama, it's a great education. I got the best fall football season anybody could ever imagine. Then you go down there, and now 57% of the Alabama undergraduate, at least that was the last number I knew, is out of state. So they just basically flipped it. And when you're paying out of state money to go to Alabama, instead of, a small portion of that in state, it makes a huge difference to the university. And there's nobody. And what I love about Nick is he's not keeping this money to himself. I mean, he and Terry have given a lot of money back to the university in scholarships. And so he just does the right thing.
That's good. That's good. That's good.